We've discussed how to diagnose an orthopedic injury. Now what we're going to do is talk about how to treat that injury. You've learned the theoretical skills, now we're going to put it into practice. We're going to start with upper arm injuries. I'm going to teach you how to deal with wrist injuries, forearm fractures, humerus fractures, and shoulder injuries. What we're going to do is go over the materials, and then I'm going to put them on our patient. When we're thinking about splinting, we want to make sure that we follow the principles we've already discussed. That is, having something rigid, keeping this immobile, always thinking about your CSMs, and supporting this, making sure that this is not going to move. What we don't want to have happen is that this gets worse over the extended period of time that we're with our patient. I'm going to have my patient grab a seat. Now what you see is I'm going to be using a malleable splint. There are many different types of splints like this, and this comes in very handy in a backcountry setting. Doesn't mean you have to have a splint like this, but it is very useful. If you don't have one of these malleable splints, you can always use a backpack to provide support. You could also use trekking poles, a sleeping mat, a sleeping bag, inflatable pillow. There are lots of different things. What I want you to understand is that you need to follow the techniques and the principles of splinting. Don't worry so much about the material. If you understand the techniques and you understand the principles, you can build a good splint. If I have a patient with a forearm fracture, most likely they're going to be presenting with it bent like this and holding against their chest for support. Doesn't mean that's always the way, but this is the most common. When your patient's got their forearm like that, I'm going to come up to them and assess this fracture starting with CSMs. Remember, I've already diagnosed this as a forearm fracture using the skills you learned in the lecture. When we do CSMs, we check distal to the injury site or farther away. My patient has a good pulse, their skin color, temperature, moisture is good, and they can feel that I'm touching them. Whatever I've decided to use for my supportive device, I'm going to make sure that I measure it appropriately. It needs to extend past the hand and past the elbow to incorporate them both in. Now, if your patient's capable, I can have my patient support the splint. If not, maybe you can have a bystander, a family member, or I might have to do it myself. But if my patient can support it, I'm going to have them hold it just like this. What we need to do now is secure this splint to the patient's arm. The best way to do that is with roller gauze. This is simply gauze that comes in roll form. Now, people often want to use ACE wraps. ACE wraps are wonderful in lots of different applications, but they're not my favorite when it comes to splinting. The reason is ACE wraps are extremely stretchy, and what often happens is people put them on too tightly, and you then have to take it apart and start all over again. Where roller gauze, it usually goes on correctly. I'm going to start up here at my patient's elbow. Now, when you put on roller gauze, there's an easy way to do it and a hard way to do it. The easy way is to ensure that I'm rolling it out like this over the patient's arm. You can see if I flip it around and it's coming off the back side, it actually makes it much more difficult for me to keep tension on this. So whenever you're putting roller gauze on, you're rolling it into the patient's arm. Simply start up here, and I'm just going to continually roll this, securing the splint to my patient. All the way down to the hand, and then I'm going to come all the way back up. Use the entire roll. Once you get to the end, people sometimes aren't sure what to do. Do I tape it? Do I tie it? Should I pin it? The easiest thing, just take a loop and you can just make a little tie. Don't tie this in an elaborate knot. Simply an overhand knot will do. You want to be able to take this off if you need to. Now that I have this secured, I now need to secure the entire patient's arm to the patient. What we're going to do is make a sling. The easiest way to go about making a sling is to hold your triangular bandage or cravat just like this. On this point right here, put a small knot. Now that I have the knot, I'm going to bring that knot, and the knot is facing towards the injured side, just like this. If I turn it around, it's going to be backwards. Keep the knot facing the injured side. Simply lay it over my patient. Now I need to complete the sling. I'm going to take the tail down here and come up under the patient's arm. Make sure that the sling extends all the way from the hand down to the elbow, that you're supporting the entire arm. Now that I have that, I have my 2 ties. I'm going to simply bring them around the back and tie. If you notice, this knot that I'm going to make is off to the side. Don't make the knot directly on the back of the patient's neck. It's just very uncomfortable. I also want to think about adding some padding in here. Maybe put a sock or a mitten or a hat underneath this tie so that it provides a little bit of comfort. Again, with a knot, simply tie an overhand with a bow. You want to be able to get this apart. Now, as you'll notice, this is supported, right? It's not going to flop down, but it can swing. And imagine if this patient's arm was broken and they had several miles to hike out, and this arm was bouncing around the whole time. It would become very uncomfortable, or perhaps get worse. What I want to do now is add what are called swaths. Swaths simply secure this arm to the patient so it doesn't move around. I'm going to take the same triangular bandage, but this time I'm going to fold it or roll it into about a 2.5 inch wide strip. I'm going to come over the patient's arm and under this arm. You notice it's going across the injured arm. I then come around the back and simply put another tie. One of the things to be careful of is don't ask your patient if this is too tight. If I say to my patient, "Sir, is this too tight?" they will always say yes. Simply ask your patient, "Sir or ma'am, can you breathe?" As long as they're able to breathe unrestricted, it's good. Now I've got one secure this way. I'm going to do the same thing, but now I'm going to go the opposite direction. Take my triangular bandage, put it into that 2.5 inch wide strip. Come this way. Again, "Sir, ma'am, can you breathe?" If they can, everything's good. Tie it in a simple bow. Now, if you notice, this is secure. It's not going to flop anywhere. We're not done splinting yet. Remember, the most important thing when it comes to dealing with orthopedic injuries is circulation, sensation, and motion. So I finished my splint. I'm going to come back here. Skin color, temperature, moisture. Can you feel this? And can I get in and check for a good pulse? Everything should be at least the same, but hopefully better than it was when I started. Now I'll have a conversation about how we're going to get our patient out, and I'm going to continually monitor them, checking those CSMs every 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or whatever is appropriate for your patient in that situation.